Hello, and thank you for joining us for our last edition in the series of Travel Talk. Today is Friday, May 22nd, and this is episode 6. And today we're going to talk about travel insurance. And do you need it? What good is it? Why not have it? But before we get to that, I am going to share my screen and show you a little bit about what we're talking about today. So here we go with our presentation. And so we talk all the time about why we love travel, and you're here because you love travel. I'm here because I love travel. I love taking women on trips around the world, something that we've done since 2012. I love planning travel for individuals, and I just like to go. And right now, we're not going, but we will be soon. So this is for what goes on during our current COVID epidemic as well as post-COVID. And all the information that we're going to be talking about in all of our videos is up to the minute information, which is a good thing, but I also want to caution you that things are changing so rapidly, sometimes hour by hour in the travel industry. So if you see these videos after the date that they were presented, and you have a question or you have a situation that applies to something that we're talking about, don't take that as the gospel because it may have changed. So if you have any questions about any of this information, give me a call, shoot me an email, just to make sure that it's still accurate information. So I said in the beginning, you've probably known me as Boomer Women Travel. We've been taking women on trips around the world since 2012. This is women from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, from all locations, mostly over 40 years old. They could be married, they could be single, divorced, widowed, whatever. They just want to go and explore the world. They may not have anyone to go with. They may not want to do the planning. We help them to find roommates. We do all the planning. And then we join you and we make sure that there are not any issues so that you can have the best trip. And we're still going to be doing that. Probably January 2021 is going to be our next trip. But in January of this year, we joined a host agency, Montecito Village Travel, and it's also been known as your travel center. And that's an agency of hundreds of independent advisors like myself. And one of the many wonderful things about that is that I get to be a member of the Virtuoso Network. And the Virtuoso Network is some of the world's finest travel advisors and suppliers. We specialize in luxury and experiential travel. And we have privileged access to exclusive amenities, travel offers, and other rare experiences that you just can't get on your own. I can always get you upgrades. I can always get you credits and a lot of extra things when we're dealing with a Virtuoso company. So that allows me to specialize as well in individual travel for couples, for families, for small groups. So we've been doing a lot of that since the beginning of the year, although it's come to much of a halt right now. Before I get to, I also wanted to cite the sources that I've been using to research all 6 of our travel talks. And in addition to my own affiliations. I'm also affiliated with or a member of Cruise Line Industry, the International Association of Travel Agencies. ESA is another one that's in the European Union. Plus each travel talk, I add more sources that I'll cite as I go along. Before I get into our topic today, which is travel insurance, I wanted to just update you on what's going on, the latest in travel news as of today, Friday, May 22nd. So the US and Mexico announced that they're extending their temporary travel restrictions between the borders with Mexico and Canada, and they've extended those through June 22nd. So while essential travel between the countries is open, that's for our healthcare workers, people that need to go to work, people that have emergency issues, that's allowed. But individuals that are traveling for tourism, sightseeing, recreation, gambling, attending an event, they're not permitted to travel. And even though Mexico is still not opening its border to places like Canada and the US, they're preparing to reopen their destinations, with Los Cabos starting first on June 1st, starting first, and then they're kind of phasing it in through the first quarter of 2021. So they're going to set their health and safety standards, and in July they're going to phase 2, and some of their international terminals are expected to reopen, and phase 3 will see the slow recovery of national and international travel. Now, these dates are suggested dates. So when they say that they're not opening their borders, that's true. But when they say that they're opening or borders are opening, you really want to check back on that. Our favorite place, Italy, is opening its borders within Europe starting June 3rd. So that means that people arriving from other European nations, as well as the Schengen zone, I always have a problem with that word, Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, Switzerland, UK, etc. They can travel within the European Union. We in the US still can't go there, and other countries still can't go there, but we hope to be able to go there soon. Athens in Greece unveiled new measures for travel tourism. And what they said is that health officials are going to conduct a sample coronavirus test at the Greek airports. So there was no need for a COVID-19 test before you arrive in the country. And they're also going to waive the 14-day quarantine for inbound travelers to Greece. Their seasonal hotels are going to open on June 15th, which is 2 weeks earlier than they planned. And the all-year hotels will open on June 1st. International flights, which are not European Union, will resume as of July 1st. And flights between European Union countries will gradually resume as of June 15th. So flights initially into Greece will only land in Athens and then go elsewhere in Greece from there. But eventually they'll be able to go to all of the airports. And this week, Greece also reopened its museums and archaeological sites. They lifted travel restrictions toward the mainland and the island of Crete. And while the situation in Greece is improving substantially, restaurants and cafes in Greece will be allowed to reopen on May 25th. So that's what's happening in Greece. Alitalia Airlines, which is the Italian airlines that was set for bankruptcy until the country of Italy stepped in. They're going to resume their June 2nd nonstop between Rome and New York City service and direct flights to Spain, so from Rome to Madrid and Rome to Barcelona, and nonstops between Milan and southern Italy. And the airline is going to operate 36% more flights compared to May, flying on 30 routes to 25 airports, including 15 in Italy and 10 abroad. In Spain, 2 museums will reopen June 1st, one being the beautiful Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, which I visited, and also the Bilbao Fine Arts Museum. And finally, Aruba announced a tentative reopening of their borders for inbound travelers scheduled between June 15th and July 1st. So that is the latest in what's going on in travel update, general travel updates. And now we're going to talk about travel insurance. And a lot of people wonder if it's a waste of money. And when you think about insurance, it's all about risk. We have auto insurance, we have home insurance, we have medical insurance. Why not have travel insurance? You have to ask yourself, what are you willing to risk? Are you willing to risk the loss of any deposits or prepayments that you make if your trip is canceled for any reason by any of the vendors? Are you willing to pay out of your pocket if you need to return home early from your trip for any reason? Are you willing to foot the bill for any out-of-pocket medical expenses, from basic emergency care to emergency medical evacuation if you get sick or ill while you're on your trip? That gets very costly to medevac out. You have to ask yourself, do you have a credit card or general insurance policy that includes bundled travel insurance? And if you do, does it cover all of the things that we just talked about? Medicare doesn't work outside of the US. A lot of credit cards offer some travel coverage, but not all. And it's really important. I always recommend that everybody get travel insurance. You're spending thousands of dollars on these trips that you've planned for so long, and anything can happen. So we have lots of examples of last minute illnesses or surgery. When we were going to Greece last year, a few weeks before that, one of our guests broke her foot. And so she had to cancel because she wasn't going to be able to walk around. And she got a complete refund. And oh, by the way, her travel companion, her roommate, didn't want to go without her. So she also was able to cancel because it was her travel companion. And they both got a very quick refund, total refund, after they had paid their full amount. Another situation was one of our guests' adult son got cancer and needed immediate treatment. And it was an immediate family member. So she was able to cancel to be able to take care of her son, who, by the way, is just doing fine. We had another guest that was delayed with bad weather, couldn't get out for 24 hours, and she was able to get reimbursed for all of her expenses, food, hotel, car, any expenses related to the delay, plus transportation once she got to, I think it was Costa Rica we were in at that time, which was 2.5 hours from the airport. So it was really costly for her to pay for transportation instead of being able to ride on the group transport, which was the day before. But she got reimbursed for all of that. Another couple of friends last October, went on the way to Italy, got stuck in Paris. They canceled their flight from Paris to Italy, and they were stuck there for 12 hours. Imagine being stuck in Paris for 12 hours at 9 o'clock in the morning. So they checked their bags at the airport, and they took some transportation, and they had never been to Paris. So they were able to explore Paris and get to our destination. 12 hours later, their flight took off. Again, they had to pay quite a lot for transportation to get them from the airport, which was about an hour and a half away, to our destination, but they were reimbursed for all of that. And another guest put down, I think, her $600 deposit, but then had to cancel and was able to get that $600 back. So all of that is using the insurance company that I have selected as, I really enjoy working with them. I've been working with Travelex Insurance for the last few years exclusively because I am delighted with their service. They act quickly. They've never denied a claim yet. And they're also rated #1 in travel insurance. So I can help anyone, and I do assist my guests whenever they need to file a claim. I help them to file that claim and follow up. But it's a little bit more challenging for me to follow up and help if you get your own insurance with another company. And I've done it, and I've been able to do it in some cases. Other cases, I haven't been able to because the travel insurance company will not budge. So you want to be really careful that you know about the coverage and that you've had experience with good customer service before. So once you know the risks and what you want to do, then you want to do some more research on the policies to see if they cover what you need. And there's different types of travel insurance. So the travel insurance that I offer through Travelex is comprehensive, covers all of this. But there are companies that just sell trip cancellation coverage, or just sell medevac insurance, or travel medical insurance, or airlines will sell insurance on their flights, and cruises will sell insurance on the cruises and anything else that you book. If you book the airfare and excursions through them, they'll cover that too. If you don't, then they will only cover what you book through them. But you want to be careful with these policies. I had a couple recently that bought, one of the two couples were traveling on a cruise that was supposed to go out next month that was canceled. And one of them bought travel insurance through the cruise line, and the other bought travel insurance through another company. I think it was, can't think of the name offhand. But what we come to find out now about the travel insurance is that the travel insurance that they bought through the cruise line was about $2,000 for the couple. And for the same travel insurance through a private insurance company was half of that. It was $1,000. So they were paying quite a bit more to get their travel insurance through the cruise line. So you want to be careful about that. The other thing is the travel insurance that they bought separately, they couldn't get their money back even during this COVID-19 period. They could extend the dates, which we did because they took a future cruise credit and booked the date, but they couldn't get a refund. And with Travelex, you're able to under certain circumstances. And so again, you want to really be able to read all that fine print and make sure that you have the coverage, all of the coverage that you might need, as well as the fine print of how they pay, when they pay, can you cancel, what are the circumstances. And for example, for medical insurance, a study was done recently by the U.S. Travel Insurance Association, and they found that only 6% of U.S. travelers get travel medical insurance, which differs from trip insurance. And it kind of illustrates the gamble that Americans take when they go overseas without travel medical insurance. Now, a lot Americans are of the thought that, oh, I have medical insurance. It's going to cover me wherever I go. Well, that's not the case. As I said before, Medicare doesn't work outside of the US, and some of your other policies might not, or they may only cover limited issues if you do travel outside of the US. Just because you're traveling to a country that has universal health care doesn't mean you're going to be covered for anything, or if you are covered, that you're going to be covered for everything that you need. And because so many Americans have traveled overseas and sustained serious injury or illness, multiple countries this year have made travel medical insurance coverage a condition for entering their border. So because their universal healthcare system was so threatened with insolvency. And so this year it's 3 countries. Thailand has what's called a retirement visa, and it's not really for retirement, but it is for all travelers over 50 years old that are coming to their country. And you must have this insurance. And if you don't purchase it before you arrive, you either must purchase the plan at the airport or they will not let you into their country. Japan also is implementing something. They found that 30% of international tourists come to their country without travel medical insurance, and 1/5 of their hospitals have been hit with unpaid medical bills incurred by foreign travelers. This is all before COVID-19. And then a third one is a tiny country called New Caledonia. It's a French Pacific Island territory, and while it's very small, it has a very busy seaport, and it welcomes more than 1 million cruise passengers every year. And so they've implemented a potential entry ban for travelers who cannot prove that they have sufficient travel medical insurance. And you're going to be looking for more and more countries that are going to require that. Now, remember that a lot of really good comprehensive travel policies, like the one that I represent, and there are many others as well, do include medical insurance. So you don't necessarily want to buy just special medical insurance unless you're sure you're covered on everything else. So medical insurance covers several things. And emergency medical evacuation insurance covers the cost of transportation if a qualified physician determines that you have to be evacuated for treatment to the nearest medical facility or for your home country due to sickness. And I think that that's really important, because if you're stuck in a country and you're not familiar with that country, and you can get your doctor to make sure that you get medevac home, that can cost $50, $100, $500,000 depending on where you're located. And unless you have a special policy that includes medevac insurance, you're going to be faced with the burden of paying for that or staying in a country that you're not comfortable with. There were a few stories last year of a teenage boy who was traveling with his family from the US to Canada, which is, depending on where they're going, it's not very far. But the boy got sick. He got an illness, and he could only be transported home in an ambulance or a medevac laying flat, and they couldn't afford it. So they had to stay there for months, and they couldn't go home. And I've heard of that happening time and time again. I knew of a guy that was in China on business several years ago, and he was trekking the Great Wall, and he fell, and he went into a coma, and he was seriously injured, and he was all alone, and he couldn't get out of there, and his family had to come there, and it was really a nightmare. So you want to check to make sure that you have insurance provider that doesn't exclude that. Also, some more common reasons for cancellation of cars are baggage loss and delay, damage. Yeah, you can get usually you can get compensated by the airlines, but if you have a pretty comprehensive insurance travel insurance policy, you won't need that. You won't need the hassle of trying to file with them. Another big one is delayed or canceled flights. I talked about some of our guests that had benefited from that. And then another one is if you lose your travel documents and getting those replaced. So think about some of that, and also some of the common weather issues. Winter weather. That was one of my guests was stuck in northern Michigan for 24 hours, couldn't get out because of the weather. We also know that there's issues with tornadoes and there's issues with hurricanes, and that's going to cause either cancellation or interruption or delay. A big one that you might not even have thought about is if your travel supplier defaults. And some policies list if your supplier goes bankrupt as a covered reason, and others say supplier default. And default is the word that you are looking for, because some companies go out of business, they go bankrupt with actually not declaring bankruptcy, they just close their business. And if that happens, Thomas Cook, that happened last year, and they were one of the oldest and biggest travel providers in the world, and they stranded thousands and thousands and thousands of passengers, and people are still trying to bail out from that. So if it doesn't say default by the travel provider, which could be a tour operator, a travel company, any of those, then you might not get any money back. So be careful about that as well. Another thing that you want to really be careful about is pre-existing conditions. And this study done a couple of years ago said that more than 1 in 4 Americans say that they have a pre-existing medical condition. Well, if you're buying travel insurance, you have to disclose if you have a pre-existing medical condition. And if you get ill or injured, well, basically ill because of that pre-existing condition, they will deny you most of the time. But for example, the company that I represent has a pre-existing medical condition exclusion waiver, and it's not that difficult. As long as you purchase the plan within 21 days of your initial deposit, as long as the amount of coverage that you purchased equals all the prepaid non-refundable payments or deposits, as long as you're medically able to travel when the plan was paid and the trip doesn't exceed the maximum trip cost, then they'll waive that pre-existing condition. So be careful with pre-existing conditions. Also, you want to pay attention to general exclusions, because every policy has them. And the one thing that probably every single travel policy excludes is war, whether it's declared war or not. An active war, a participation in civil disorder, riot, insurrection, unrest. Virtually every retail travel insurance policy contains exclusions for any consequences related to war, either declared or undeclared. So be careful when you go to certain countries where maybe war already exists, there's a threat of war, or even there may not be. But that's the chances that you take. Also in exclusions are self-inflicted injury or suicide or attempted suicide. They're not going to pay for that. Normal pregnancy or childbirth is not included. However, if there's unforeseen complications, they will pay for that. If you have a mental, nervous, or psychological breakdown when you're traveling, they won't pay for that. If you are traveling on what they call open tickets, in other words, your travel dates are open, they're not specific, they won't pay for that. Being under the influence of drugs or narcotics that are not administered or on the advice of a physician, that's not going to be covered. And if you're traveling solely for the purpose of seeking medical treatment, a lot of people do that if they have some serious illnesses like cancer. A lot of people do it for cosmetic surgery. You won't be covered for that. And if you take a trip against your physician's advice, they won't cover that. So again, read all the fine print and know the policy and know the company that you're dealing with. So let's talk a bit about travel insurance during and after the pandemic. So obviously, it's the best idea now to get travel insurance because this was unplanned, and if you secured a plan and you were traveling or set to travel during COVID, a lot of policies will be paying for that. But because it was an unknown and because it started, I think it was declared a pandemic on around January 23rd, almost all of the travel insurance companies have adjusted their coverage. So if you purchase a policy after that date, don't take for granted that especially if you've used them before, don't take for granted that they're going to cover everything that they did before COVID-19. You want to look for if there is any exclusions on that, because now COVID-19 has become a named event. In other instances, coverage may be limited to travel advisories or restrictions. And so how travel insurance works during the pandemic is you can you cancel for any reason? Is it still a smart investment? It's another element of, can you change or adjust your travel insurance? I gave you the example of some clients that were scheduled for a cruise. And yes, the cruise is over a year in advance now. And they were able to switch the dates on their travel insurance policy. However, if they didn't want to travel, if they didn't want to take the future cruise credit and they just took 100% refund and said, yeah, we're not going on a cruise for a while, they would have lost that $1,000 for the insurance that they paid because that particular company didn't offer a refund, which is kind of rare during COVID because a lot of companies are being flexible. So where should you buy and how should you buy? I always recommend going through a travel advisor or an independent agent that knows a lot about certain policies because they know the most. Yes, you can go online, you can Google travel insurance, you're going to come up with hundreds of them. You certainly don't want to risk your health on the cheapest policy or something that's not rated well. So I'm giving you an example here of costs. And again, I use TravelX Insurance. Yes, they do pay me a commission. Any insurance company will pay a travel advisor a commission. I also have access to many more. Since I joined my host agency, I have other travel companies, travel insurance companies that I can represent. And as a matter of fact, my clients that purchase their own insurance on this cruise, the company that they use is part of my agency represents. And so I was able to use my connections through my company to help them. I don't know that just anybody would have allowed that, but because I had my connections through the agency, I was able to help them. But let me give you an example and tell you why I really, really love Travelex. First of all, they're rated #1 in financial strength. They have an A++ rating. They're underwritten by Berkshire Hathaway Specialty Insurance. And what all of this means is that they're one of the most financially stable companies, providers on the market, and you're not going to have to worry about their ability to pay your claim. And as I said, every guest that I've had that has had to use it has been paid, and they've been paid within a few weeks. They also offer coverage for medical treatment, but they also offer upgrades. So for example, and they offer 2 levels. They offer a basic level and a select level. I always choose select. It's not that much more, and it's a much better investment for my trip value. So if I have to cancel the trip for a covered reason, and it's pretty generous what these covered reasons are, then they're just going to give me 100% of what I paid. Same thing with if my trip is interrupted by the provider. If you have basic insurance, they're going to give you 100% back. If you've got select, they're going to bonus you. They're going to give you 150% back. Trip delays, again, my client that was delayed 24 hours, in addition to paying for all of her expenses, they paid her $250 for the day that she was stuck and couldn't get out. They're going to pay for baggage and personal effects if they're lost. They're also going to pay if they're delayed. I think it's about 6 hours it has to be delayed. The emergency medical and dental expense is the thing that I like the most, and it really covers a lot. And the emergency medical evacuation, that is to me worth all of the money, because I know that if I'm in a foreign country and I have to get home, and the only way I can get home is medical evac, that's going to be covered. So this gives you an example. This is a quote for a trip that was just under $4,000, because it does go up every $500 you travel, and it does go up every decade that you are alive. So for example, if you're aged between 60 and 69, that's the price. If you're aged 50 to 59, it's going to be lower. If you're age 70 to, I think they cap it at 75 once you get into the 70s, and then 76 to 80 is another category. It's going to be higher because obviously there's more risk. So if you are 69 today and you are going to be 70 when you travel, but you are putting your deposit down for the trip today, you only have to pay for this level of travel. You don't have to pay for the higher level because you're going to be 70, because you're buying the insurance when you're 69. So that's another benefit of that. So there's, again, a lot of upgrades. If you are like the a la carte, if you are an extreme sports person, you would want to upgrade your policy to include that, because most travel policies will not include, if you're going on a whitewater rafting trip, if you're going on, some of these extreme sports trips. So you want to get special coverage, upgrade for that. Cancel for any reason is another upgrade. And as you can see here, under the basic plan, you can't get it, but it is available if you get the select plan. And so cancel for any reason, doesn't matter why you have to cancel, you just can. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get 100% though. A lot of companies will only give you up to 75% if you cancel for any reason. But if you cancel for an illness or an injury, or your travel companion has an illness or an injury, or somebody gets sick in your immediate family back home, or passes away, then you will get covered 100%. Another thing that I like about TravelX is if you're traveling with kids, they're free. And they have a great 24/7 emergency assistance. They give you the number to call based on the country that you're going to. So again, you don't have to buy TravelX insurance through me, but if you do, I have your back and I make sure you're covered, and I always purchase it when I travel. So that's pretty much what's going on in travel insurance right now. And if you have any questions, or if you have travel insurance, if you want to purchase travel insurance, and you can just purchase travel insurance with me. You don't have to purchase your whole trip with me now that I'm doing a lot of individual travel. But if you have any questions on any policy that you might have, I'll do as much research as I can. Give me a call or shoot me an email. And again, I want to thank you for coming to our 6th and final episode in this series. We will be doing updates as they come out, maybe once a week. And I'll let you know when those are happening. So thanks for attending, and stay safe out there.